James, Claire, Emily, and Ethan, 4 neighbors who once trusted their quiet town with their lives, soon discovered that the calm streets they called home hid a nightmare. Behind the polite smile of one man, terror was quietly taking root, turning their world upside down and threatening to destroy everything they held dear. In a small town where life moved slowly and neighbors often gathered for friendly chats, a strange unease began to creep in. For many years, the people here lived quietly, their days filled with routine and familiarity. The streets were lined with well-kept houses, children played outside without worry, and everyone believed their community was safe. Among these neighbors lived a man whose presence was barely noticed at first. He lived alone in an old house at the end of Maple Street, a place where few visitors ever went. People rarely saw him outside, and when they did, he seemed polite but distant, someone who kept to himself. At first, the man appeared to be just another quiet resident, blending into the background like so many others. He didn't attend town events or socialize with neighbors, which was unusual but not suspicious enough to raise concern. The community had a handful of other loners, so no one thought much of it. But beneath his calm exterior, something darker was beginning to stir. Unseen by anyone, his mind was filled with thoughts and plans that would soon shatter the town's sense of peace. It began with small things that could easily be explained away. Neighbors noticed items missing from their porches or yards, a bicycle here, a package there. At first, people assumed it was a prank or the work of passing strangers, but the incidents didn't stop, and soon, strange noises disturbed the quiet nights. Doors creaked open on their own, and faint footsteps echoed where no one should have been. Some residents felt a constant sense of being watched, even inside their own homes. The feeling was unsettling, but no one had proof or even a clear idea of who might be responsible. Despite the growing tension, the man at the end of the street continued his daily routine with unsettling normalcy. He would leave his house early in the morning, often carrying a small bag, and return late at night. Occasionally, a neighbor might catch a glimpse of him through the window, sitting silently or moving about with strange intensity. Yet, when, or asked, no one could say for sure what he was doing or why. His silence only deepened the mystery. As weeks passed, the small incidents grew more troubling. Cars parked nearby were found with scratched paint and broken mirrors. Mailboxes were overturned, and garden fences damaged. The man's house itself seemed to be the center of these disturbances. Yet no one saw him commit any of these acts, and he never caused a scene in public. It was as if he was hiding behind a mask of normalcy, using fear as his weapon without ever revealing himself. Some neighbors began to speak in hushed tones, sharing uneasy thoughts and theories. But others dismissed the concerns, unwilling to believe that someone so close could be behind the strange events. The town's police department received reports, but with little evidence, the cases remained unsolved. The feeling of safety that once defined the community slowly faded, replaced by suspicion and fear. What no one realized was that this man was carefully preparing for something much worse. His calm, distant demeanor hid a mind planning to take control through fear and chaos. The quiet man at the end of Maple Street was about to change the lives of everyone around him in ways they could never have imagined. The shadow he cast was growing, and the town's peaceful days were numbered. The unsettling incidents that had started as small annoyances began to grow darker and more frequent, turning the town's unease into outright fear. The quiet streets of Maple Street, once filled with laughter and friendly greetings, became places people avoided after dusk. The strange sounds in the night grew louder, footsteps pacing just beyond the windows, doors rattling without wind, and whispers carried, on the cold air, No one could explain what was happening, but everyone felt it. The presence of something sinister lurking close by. The man living at the end of the street remained unchanged in his outward appearance. He continued his daily routine, always calm, polite when seen, and careful not to draw attention. But behind closed doors, a different side of him was revealing itself. The neighbors noticed more signs of his growing disturbance: broken fences near his property, strange symbols crudely painted on walls, and discarded items that looked like pieces of broken tools or electronics. Some residents suspected he might be watching them, or worse, planning something. But their fear made them silent, unwilling to confront what they didn't fully understand. The town's police began to take notice. Reports of vandalism multiplied: cars with slashed tires, garden decorations smashed, and homes mysteriously entered, but left untouched. The officers questioned neighbors, but no one was willing or able to provide solid information. The man's behavior in public was unremarkable, almost too normal to be suspicious. This left the authorities frustrated, and the community even more anxious. If no one could catch him in the act, how could they stop the growing terror? Tension mounted with every new incident. Residents began installing locks and security cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse of the person behind the attacks. Some held neighborhood watches, but even groups of people could not find or confront the invisible threat. Fear spread silently like a virus, turning friends into cautious strangers. People stopped leaving their doors unlocked, and many refused to go outside after dark. The man at the end of the street seemed unaffected by the chaos around him, as if he was controlling the fear like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings. One night, something changed. A window in his house shattered, the sound sharp and loud enough to wake neighbors blocks away. Police rushed to the scene, expecting to find an intruder or a victim. Instead, they found the house eerily quiet, with no sign of anyone inside. The shattered glass and a trail of footprints outside suggested something or someone had entered or left in a hurry. This event deepened the mystery and sent shockwaves through the town. How was this man connected to the strange damage, and why had he suddenly vanished? The following days were filled with speculation and rumors. Some believed he had fled the town, while others feared he was hiding nearby, preparing his next move. The fear that had once been a vague feeling became a constant presence, turning homes into prisons and neighbors into suspects. Everyone wondered who might be next, and no one felt safe. The quiet man had become a ghost in the town's nightmares, a figure who seemed to exist just beyond reach, but whose influence was undeniable. The people of Maple Street were trapped in a growing web of fear, unsure when or where the terror would strike again. The calm before the storm was over. What came next would shatter their world in ways they never expected. The disappearance of the young woman marked a terrifying turning point for the town. She was someone everyone knew, a bright, cheerful presence who had grown up in the neighborhood. Her sudden vanishing shocked the community and left an unshakable fear in its wake. She was last seen walking near the man's house on Maple Street, heading home after an evening visit to a friend. After that, she simply vanished without a trace. No calls, no messages, no sightings. It was as if she had been swallowed by the night itself. Police launched a full-scale investigation, searching every inch of the area around the man's house. As officers combed through his property, they discovered things that no one could have imagined. Behind a bookshelf in his living room, they found a hidden door leading to a narrow, dark staircase. It descended into a basement filled with strange and unsettling items. Old photographs of neighbors, detailed maps of the town with certain houses marked, and bizarre symbols painted on the walls in a way that seemed ritualistic. The hidden room was filled with evidence of an obsession with control, fear, and surveillance. Police found journals filled with disturbing thoughts, plans, and lists of people, some with notes that hinted at threats or intentions. Among the collected objects were personal belongings of the missing woman, confirming fears that she had been there. The realization hit the town hard. This wasn't a random disappearance. It was part of something far more sinister. As news spread, people began to piece together the terrifying pattern. The man had been watching his neighbors for years, learning their routines and weaknesses. He used fear as a weapon, breaking into homes not to steal valuables, but to remind people that he was always there, always watching. The hidden basement revealed how deeply he had planned and prepared to control the community through terror. But the most shocking discovery came when investigators uncovered more secret spaces within the house. Behind a false wall in the basement was another room, smaller and locked tight. Inside, they found signs of recent use, clothing, food wrappers, and what appeared to be evidence of someone held captive. It was clear the missing woman had been confined there, though when or how she had escaped, or if she ever had, remained a mystery. The police extended their search to the nearby woods and abandoned buildings, fearing the worst. As they dug deeper, they found traces of the man's movements far beyond the town limits, hinting at a disturbing network of places where he had left his mark. It was clear that the terror he had brought to this quiet town was only a small part of a larger, darker history. The community struggled to come to terms with what they had learned. The man who had seemed so ordinary was actually a master of manipulation and fear, hiding his true self behind a mask of silence. His obsession with control had escalated to imprisonment and possibly worse. The peaceful life that had once defined the town was shattered, replaced by a feeling of vulnerability and mistrust. No one could forget the young woman's disappearance, which became a symbol of the horror hidden beneath the surface. As the investigation continued, the question on everyone's mind was how many others had suffered in silence before her. The man's secret obsession had turned into a nightmare that no one could ignore, and the town was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered innocence. As the investigation into the man's home and his connection to the missing woman deepened, authorities uncovered a shocking truth that shook the entire town to its core. The man was not who he appeared to be. Behind the quiet, polite exterior was a man living a double life, hiding a past so dark and dangerous that it explained everything: the fear, the obsession, and the terror he had inflicted on those around him. A background check revealed that the man had assumed a false identity years earlier. In reality, he was wanted in another state for a series of violent crimes, including assault and stalking. He had vanished without a trace from his previous life, erasing all records and creating a new persona to escape the law and start over. This new identity had fooled everyone in the town: neighbors, local officials, even the police. His ability to blend in perfectly was part of his careful plan. He had chosen a small, quiet town where people trusted one another, where strangers were a rarity. This made it easier for him to observe without suspicion. He built his new life with deliberate care, masking the violent tendencies that had marked his past and using fear to keep people at a distance. The quiet man was a predator, hiding in plain sight. The discovery of his past crimes explained many things about the strange behaviors observed in the town. His obsession with control, the hidden rooms in his house, and the disturbing symbols on the walls were all signs of someone used to manipulation and intimidation. But more disturbing was the realization that he had continued his pattern of abuse and violence in this new place, using fear as a tool to dominate the community. Investigators uncovered detailed records and journals in which he documented his plans, victims, and thoughts. The journals revealed a chilling mindset, one focused on control, power, and escape. He had carefully avoided capture by moving from place to place, always starting fresh, but never changing his dangerous behavior. The town's terror was part of a much larger history of violence. The man's past also held clues about the missing woman. It became clear that her disappearance was not random, but targeted, a part of his ongoing pattern of trapping those who challenged or frightened him. His obsession with controlling those around him had escalated into kidnapping, holding victims captive in secret rooms designed to break their spirits. As the police pieced together this grim portrait, the community struggled to accept the truth. The man they had seen as a harmless recluse was actually a dangerous criminal who had lived among them for years, hiding his true self behind a mask of normality. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. How could someone so close cause so much pain? The discovery of his double life forced the town to confront the idea that evil could hide anywhere, even in the most ordinary places. It was a reminder that appearances could deceive, and that trust could be broken in the worst possible ways. The man's capture marked a turning point, but the scars he left behind would take much longer to heal. In the end, the truth about his past gave the community answers, but no comfort. The man who terrorized everyone had lived a life built on lies, fear, and violence. His double life was finally exposed, but the shadow he cast over the town remained, an ever-present reminder of the darkness that can exist just beneath the surface of everyday life. The man's arrest brought a mix of relief and fear to the town. After years of terror and uncertainty, the nightmare seemed to be over. Yet the peace that returned was fragile, and the wounds he had inflicted were deep and lasting. Families who once felt safe in their own homes now found themselves haunted by memories of fear and suspicion. The quiet streets of Maple Street no longer carried the same sense of comfort. Instead, they held echoes of the darkness that had lurked there for so long. In the days following his capture, the community came together to support one another, trying to rebuild trust and heal the invisible scars. Neighborhood meetings were held, and people shared their stories of anxiety and loss. Some revealed how long they had lived in fear, while others admitted to never suspecting the man who had caused so much pain. The sense of betrayal was strong. How could someone they passed by every day be capable of such terror? Counselors and specialists were brought in to help those affected cope with the trauma. Children who had once played freely outside struggled with nightmares, and adults found it difficult to relax even in their own homes. The impact was not only emotional, but practical. Many families installed new security systems and changed routines, determined never to be caught off guard again. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued their investigation, searching for more evidence and trying to uncover if there were any other victims. The man's hidden rooms and journals suggested that his actions might have been even more widespread than initially thought. There was a growing concern that others had suffered in silence, afraid to come forward. This shadow of uncertainty weighed heavily on the town, a reminder that some wounds might never fully heal. Despite the fear, the community slowly began to reclaim its identity. Neighbors started talking again, opening doors and windows, reclaiming the public spaces that had been avoided for so long. Local events resumed, and there was a quiet determination to move forward, refusing to let the past define them. But the memory of the man who terrorized everyone remained a cautionary tale, proof that even the most peaceful places could harbor darkness. The man himself was moved to a high-security prison, facing charges that included kidnapping, assault, and numerous acts of intimidation. His trial revealed more disturbing details of his double life and the terror he had spread. The courtroom was filled with people who had once lived in fear, now united in their desire for justice. Though the verdict brought closure, it also reopened old wounds, reminding everyone of the long journey ahead. In the end, the story of the man who terrorized everyone around him became a lasting warning. It showed how appearances can deceive, and how fear can quietly grow until it consumes a community. The town learned hard lessons about trust, vigilance, and the need to look beneath the surface. While they could never forget what had happened, they chose to face the future with courage, determined to rebuild the peace that had once seemed unbreakable. The terror was over, but the impact would echo for years to come, an unsettling reminder that evil can wear the mask of normalcy and that true safety requires more than just locked doors and quiet streets.